You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 104 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewert, and as always, I'm with my loser podcasting friend, Jeff Gargas.
Oh, it's so great to be back podcasting after a few weeks off now. Feeling good about myself for the last 3 weeks, and now I'm brought back down to earth.
Oh, stop, Jeff. We released some crazy good episodes the past few weeks, especially I was just listening to episode 100 again, and you were so nice and generous that episode. It was so sweet.
I tried to be nice because, I think everyone who listens know that we actually do, like each other, but we just have a lot of fun picking on each other. It's that brother-sister thing. But I do appreciate you, Ray, however mean you might be.
No, it is very fun to do these recordings. I won't lie to you. We took about 3 weeks off as we were kind of getting back into the school year. We were traveling a bunch to support the districts that were getting back into their institute days and welcoming back their teachers from the summer. I was getting back into my own classroom as well. We don't really know what you were doing, but it really, really was sad. I know this is, it's the truth, but it was sad. It would be like a Monday night and I'd be looking around. I'm like, what do you mean we're not recording 5 episodes tonight of the podcast? Like, Jeff, where are you? I even called you a few times. So it was like, so I feel a little lonely. It's Monday. We're not recording.
Life is not right now.
It's true. And now we're back to our regular routine of picking on each other for about 4 hours every Monday.
Yeah, and you know what? So that's cool. I'm super excited about that because now we've got several weeks lined up of recording, and that's always great. I'm also super excited because we're doing probably like my favorite thing that we do, Ray.
I do know what your favorite thing is. I wonder if our listeners know.
Yeah, so we've done this a couple times, and we did it again in this past spring, and then we're like, man, it's so much fun. Let's do it again in the fall. So we've got going on right now, we're doing a free PD giveaway.
Yes.
So this is where you can jump on to teachbetter.com/PD19, fill out a quick form telling us whether you want to get some PD for your building or for your entire district and what you're looking for PD on, a variety of different topics, and we customize things all the time. And boom, that's it. You enter the form, you enter to win. We're going to select 10. A lot of times we choose a lot more than 10. I'm not going to lie. That's a little secret. And we're going to give away a bunch of free 60 to 90 minute PD sessions. And this is literally like no strings attached, nothing. Like, we're coming to your school. There is no charge for your district or your building. We're going to come present on what you're doing. We're doing it because we love meeting new teachers. We love coming out. And one of the most common questions we get is, can you come to my school? And then one of the most common barriers is unfortunately the financial thing. So we like to do this every now and then, try and take that out because we just want to go meet new teachers and hopefully have an impact in it. So I'm like super, super excited right now because it's going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And they have a few more days left. This releases on a Thursday and it goes until Saturday night. But I love going into schools. Like, it's my favorite thing about being with the Teach Better team is going to a educator's school, hanging out for the day, being able to share on topics. And the best part is that you guys get to choose the topics because we present on a ridiculous number of things. And I know that, we're kind of limiting it to a 60 to 90 minute session, but I mean, whether it be standard-based grading, growth mindset, social emotional learning, podcasting with your students, building rigorous assessments, the grid method. I mean, these are things that we know teachers are hungry for. And yeah, we have online courses at Teach Better Academy, but it's way more fun to be able to go into a school and actually get to do some live training with some hands-on practical next steps to get it to be your next success in your classroom. So I love these free PD giveaways. They are thebomb.com.
They really are. Super excited. So make sure you head over to teachbetter.com/PD19 for that. And hopefully we'll come to your school soon. So super excited about that. Really excited about today's episode, Ray. This was an awesome episode. I think you say it somewhere in the episode about how many just quotes there are that you can pull out of this thing with Jake Miller. I mean, just left and right. I just love some of the things he's saying. I mean, if you listen to this episode for no other reason, just for all the quotes that you could put out. I mean, you could fill your entire wall with posters with this guy. So really, really cool. If not for another reason, make sure you stick around because later on the episode, Jake's actually got a pretty cool giveaway that he's doing exclusively for you, the Teach Better Talk listener. He's going to give away a couple cool things. So you need to listen through to figure out how to win that. But Jake Miller, if you don't already know him, he's an ed tech and learning enthusiast, is how he described himself. He's the host of the educational Duct Tape Podcast. And then you may see him sharing the hashtag EduGifs all over the place with his handle of @JakeMillerTech. And he's got jakemiller.net, which has got all kinds of awesome tips on everything educational technology. He works as an educational technology integration coach in Ohio. And before shifting his focus to supporting teachers, he was actually 12 years in the classroom teaching math, science, and STEM at a wide variety of grade levels. He really, Jake is just like an ed tech geek, is how he would describe himself. He says an education and ed tech geek. Super just fun guy to talk to, really passionate about what he does. He lays out some really cool ways just to think through education, educational technology and what you should be focusing on when you're looking at the potential tools out there. He drops a bunch of really great resources to find new tools and to find people to connect with and learn from. And like I said, the quotes are just phenomenal throughout this. So I'm super excited for everyone to listen. Ray, any takeaways you want our listeners to focus on?
Well, gosh, there's so many. I am such a Jake Miller fan. I feel like there's so many people we've brought on this podcast, and we always have great conversations. But Jake is just a good guy. He's easy to talk to. He's passionate about what he's doing. And he truly just loves sharing with teachers with that teach better mindset that I know we touch on a bunch in this episode. But if there's anything I hope you enjoy, it's just the fact that this is a real educator doing real things for teachers. And I hope that you follow him and continue to kind of live in his network, live in his world, because he's got good things he's sharing out.
And with that, let's get into episode 104 with Jake Miller.
Hey everyone, it's Ray. We're going to get right back to the episode, but I want to talk about one of my favorite groups, the Illinois Digital Educators Alliance, IDEA. Now, for those of you that don't know, this is a statewide non-for-profit organization. For those of you that listened to our episode with Amber Hefner, this was one of the first conferences I was able to attend as a teacher as I started my career. Now, I had no idea that they actually had membership benefits. They have a free annual membership, and it provides so many professional development opportunities. It has the IDEA Con, the Student Technology Showcase, scholarships, awards, mini grants. Oh my goodness. And there's over 21 local chapters statewide. I would absolutely encourage you to go check out more at ideaillinois.org and make sure that you follow them on all their social media platforms. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right, we are here and we are chatting with Jake Miller. And Jake, man, it is awesome to get on your podcast. We were just talking about how you and I had a cup of coffee, I don't know, forever ago. We met in person because we are both in Ohio.
Yeah.
I think I said, hey, we got to get you on a podcast back in April, May, something like that. And now here we are. It's September and we finally got the date and got you on. So super excited to have you on, man. Appreciate you coming on. How you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great. I'm psyched to be on this show. Yeah, like you said, it's been quite a while since we had that meetup. And I was like, yes, I want to get on the show. And then I went to your schedule thing and you're like booking like 3 or 4 months out. You guys are the it crowd to be on a podcast with. So I'm psyched about it.
I just want our listeners to know that I wasn't invited to this mystical coffee that Jake and Jeff are at. And I would have loved to go because for all of you that know me, you know I'm a huge Jake Miller fan. But I have yet to meet you, Jake. And I just think that's a really awful way to start off our podcast, bragging about how you guys are besties.
Hey, Ray. Hey, Ray.
What?
If you would like to meet Jake, you could come to the Teach Better conference in November.
Wow, did you just throw in like a promo for that right now?
teachbetterconference.com is where you go to get all the information on how to come see Jake in November. And if you use code Podcast Talk, you'll save $50 to come see Jake. Was that like commercial enough for you?
Yeah, hashtag not an ad.
Yeah. You nailed it though. Does Ray really have to pay to come to it though?
We actually charge Ray double.
Right.
There's a convenience fee of dealing with her.
I understand.
Well, Jake, I want to talk about you for a minute because you're the reason why I'm going to attend the Teach Better conference.
Right.
So for all of our listeners that don't know everything that you do, would you mind kind of sharing out your role in education? And when I say your role, I mean all 75 of them.
Well, that's the truth. Like all 75 of them, like you guys sent me like, here's the things we're going to talk about today. And the first thing I wrote under this question was literally, well, because it's like, what don't I do? Like, I think that I'm just like an education and ed tech geek, right? So I just keep seeing things that I want to like try out and I just keep bouncing around to them. So I started off as a teacher. I spent 12 years in the classroom teaching math and science and some STEM. I really got kind of bit by the ed tech bug, so to speak, and I got excited about helping teachers use technology in their classrooms. So I became a tech coach for a middle school, and then while doing that, I was enjoying helping the teachers I worked with on a daily basis, but I wanted to spread it even further. Like I wanted to help more teachers, help more students, and indirectly impact more educations. And so I started sharing on Twitter, which kind of led to these EDU GIFs that I share out there. And then I developed a website to kind of be the warehouse for all those GIFs. And then I was like, I need more. And so then I started a podcast. But I think if you had to give a one-word answer here, it would just be educator, because that's what it's all about. Like that's what I geek out about is education stuff.
I love it. So you mentioned it, so I'm going to take us there right now. Let's talk about your podcast for a minute. So tell us a few things. What's it called? How can we find it? What's the format? Like, what's it about? And then, you said you kind of like got there, you kind of led yourself there, started on Twitter, then the website, then a podcast, sort of. How long have you been doing the podcast? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Educational Duct Tape, which is a really goofy name. I know it. It comes from a really goofy metaphor. So I kind of learned over the years this metaphor kind of developed in my mind as I realized watching teachers learn about educational technology at conferences like here's another plug for you guys, like the upcoming Teach Better conference. When we go to these conferences, we see, I feel like there's a couple different kinds of educators there. There are the educators that are geeking out about the tools, the tech tools, and they're like just planning on using them in their classroom tomorrow without even thinking about what they're trying to achieve for their students. And then there are the teachers who are just overwhelmed because there are too many tools to learn, when in reality, they shouldn't be focusing on all of them. And then there are the teachers who I feel like are getting it right, who are going, okay, I could use Flipgrid when I want to hear from every student. I could use Google Drawings when I want students to visually represent their thinking. I could use Kahoot when I want to review concepts. I could use Pear Deck when I want to get a formative assessment for my students. And so that's kind of the mindset of educational duct tape. And where it came from is I realized that educational technology is like duct tape is in a tool belt, right? You start with your goal. What are you trying to do? A formative assessment, a live lesson? Are you trying to flip a lesson? Are you trying to have students visually represent their thinking? What are you trying to achieve? And then you select a tool that meets that need. So select that ed tech tool to meet the need. Just like duct tape is a tool that we don't plan on using. We have a problem or something's broken or something needs fixed or we need to work on something. And oftentimes duct tape is the thing that fixes the problem for us. Not always, but oftentimes. So that's educational duct tape. And the show started back in January, and I have a different guest on every episode. I'm hoping to get you two on in the future. It's crazy being an ed tech nerd. Like my list of people I hope to get on the show is like triple digits long. Like I have so many people I want to get on. But each week when I have a person on, we go over two questions. We giggle and goof around and play some games too, but we always do two questions about educational technology. And it's always a question that a teacher might have. So it could be a learning standard. It could be something they're trying to achieve for the students. It could be a problem they have. So it might be, how do I get students to focus during a lesson? Or how do I teach the scientific method? Or how do I help students develop map skills? Or whatever the question might be, then the guest and I talk about how we might do it with educational technology. And my favorite part about it is me and the guest almost always have different answers. And often we have multiple different answers. And I think that sends the message to the teachers that there's not just like one way to do things. There's a lot of ways, and you just choose what best fits your situation and your style too. And so trying to send that message to the educators that are listening.
I really love the duct tape connection and figuring out what it is that you need and then figuring out that tool that fits. Ray, I don't know if you recall, we just released Stephanie Howell's episode, which was episode 101.
More Ohio
101.
represent right there.
More Ohio, yeah. And so she talked about the same thing about, and like I actually titled, I'm trying to remember. Title is finding the why, or focusing on the why before the what. And it was the same type principle of you've got to get familiar with why. Like, what are you trying to accomplish? Why are you here? Why are you looking for a tool?
Yeah.
Then you figure out what it is that I'm going to use to do this thing. So I love it. That's really cool. So where can we find the podcast? Let's do that shout out right now.
So the easiest way to do this is just to go to edu Duct Tape, and that's Duct DUCT Tape TAPE.com, and then there's links to all the different podcast providers and everything there. But it is on every app out there. So if you go to your favorite podcast app and search for Educational Duct Tape, or go to eduducttape.com.
Awesome. Loving it. Let's talk, Jake. I think we've talked, I can't remember, our awesome best friend cup of coffee that Ray was not invited to.
Wasn't that so nice?
Was a while ago. And I can't remember. I'm sure we talked a lot. I know I probably talked like crazy because that's how I get. And so we probably got into this, but anyone who knows me know I talk about failure all the time. We talk about it on this podcast. It's one of my favorite things to kind of look back on it and sort of assess and learn from. So can you take us to a time that you've had a failure? Tell us what happened. How did you overcome that? And then what did you take away from that?
Yeah, so my first failure, this is ironic being that one of the things I do now is go around and speak and present. My biggest failure was my very first conference presentation. So when I was, this is probably 10 years ago, somebody recommended to me that I go to a math conference at the Ohio, I forget what the math conference is called in Ohio, but they recommended I go to it and present on smartboards because I was using smartboards in my math class at the time. And I was like, oh, great. I've been using smartboards in class for 4 or 5 years. Like, I'll prepare a smart file of the different kinds of problems I'm going to show them. Spent about 20 minutes getting it ready, saved it on my computer. I was like, good, I'll be ready to go. Showed up. Technology didn't work right. I was like stumbling over my words. I'd say like, next we're going to talk about this. And then I'd go to the next slide in my presentation. It was something totally different. Like, it was just a hot mess from the beginning to the end. And so I then didn't present at a conference or anything like that for years afterwards. But once I finally worked up the guts to do it, I reflected back on that experience and I realized my problem was that I didn't prepare and I didn't plan. I didn't prepare, I didn't practice, I didn't plan. You can't wing good speaking. Like, good speaking should sound like it's natural because you've prepared it so well, right? It sounds natural because of how much you've practiced it. Like when I do a podcast episode, that's not the first time I've said those things, right? I run through that in my head before I say it. And so that's a big lesson I learned from that first failure at that first conference I tried to present at.
Jeff, are we sure that we want him to present at Teach Better?
I was just thinking,
conference?
it sounds like he's preparing a little bit more now. So, like, he's got some time between now and then. So, I think he's going to be okay.
I'm already practicing for it.
That's great, and that's I think a common misconception that a lot of people have about speakers who are just really dynamic speakers. And I know there are some that really do go out and quote unquote wing it, but I think the people that even sort of play it off the cuff and play it very organically, who are really good at sort of the Q&A session stuff, they've planned and prepared in different ways. They've made sure that they are masters of whatever it is that they're talking about. They stay in the lane of what they want to talk about, and that's the way of preparing. Others just spend hours going through and make sure they know exactly what they're going to say so that they can, like you said, come across very organically and very naturally. So that's great. For those of you who listen, we've actually rehearsed this entire episode 10 times prior to coming on tonight. We're very prepared, which is why Jake just sounds so good right now. Like, that's what's going on. So,
right.
Anyway, so Jake, let's flip that now. Let's talk about a success that you've had. And this can be something big or something small, but tell us what happened. Why was it a success for you? And then what did you take away from that?
Yeah, so the Educational Duct Tape Podcast is the biggest success I've ever experienced because I knew I had a good message and I knew I had a format that I thought educators were going to like, but I didn't realize just how quickly I would develop a connection with a group of educators over it. Ironically, my thought was I need to get better at doing that organic, off the cuff speaking, and a podcast would be a great way to do that. And I need to hone what my message is, and a podcast would be a great way to do that. And I said, okay, so let's do this. I'm going to start a podcast. And I started it, and like within a few episodes, I've got all these people that I've never met, I've never connected with on Twitter, are listening and are contacting me and are calling in to the show and sending in tweets to the show and stuff like that. And all because I tried something new, right, and developed that connection. And I think where I learned this from, and the takeaway from it is my favorite book came from a guy named Seth Godin. You guys know Seth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Not personally. It'd be
I
awesome
don't
if you
know.
knew him
Well,
personally.
yeah, Seth and I hang out all the time. Yeah, actually.
Right.
we got coffee. We got coffee the other day. Sorry we didn't
Yeah.
invite you guys.
Of course.
Oh, no big deal. So Seth has this book. It's called What to Do When It's Your Turn, and then in parentheses, and it's always your turn. And when I read that book, I was like, oh man, like stop waiting for people to give you a turn to do something. Like just step up and do it. Try it out. Like you'll never find out if it'll work until you try it. And that's what I discovered with the podcast, right? I tried it. I invited myself. I took my turn, and it turned out that it worked. And I've created this little community of excited educators around it, which is just so fun seeing. And so that's that big success that just like it keeps driving me forward.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely a huge success. I think everybody I know has tuned in to your podcast and always enjoyed it. And I, not to talk, not to compliment you and make you blush, but I think there's a reality to people that just sound natural when they're on a podcast, and you're able to, as a listener, kind of feel like you're in on a conversation, that you're not just like listening to something that's pre-recorded, but it's something valuable that you're really gaining from. And you have this insight from people that are just trying to, be honest and help you be your best. And I think that that's something I really enjoy about your podcast specifically, is it really truly is a brainstorming session. It's a conversation. And, this idea of being flexible, and there's not one tool that does it all, and wanting to find the right stuff for your students in your classroom is something that's really exciting to listen to each episode.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad to hear it's exciting for you, because it's exciting for me, because I'm like geeking out sitting alone in front of my computer talking to somebody somewhere else in the country about education. I'm like, oh, it's a great idea. I would have used this tool. And we're like geeking out about how we could use it. So I'm glad to hear you feel the same, and other people feel the same too.
Absolutely. It's a great spot for new ideas at any capacity. So in terms of kind of what fuels your fire, obviously this podcast is something that gets you excited, but you're also in education, like we touched on before, in a lot of different ways. So what do you love most about what you do, and what really fuels you to keep this energy going each and every day?
Well, so I heard this quote just a couple months ago that really kind of encapsulates this feeling. So it didn't start with the quote. I just feel like the quote kind of like summarizes it for me. And I actually talked about it in the most recent episode of the podcast. And it's a quote from a guy named Tony Jackson. He's awesome follow on Twitter. If you guys don't follow him, it's at He Rhymes With Me is his Twitter handle. But he's shared this video, this YouTube video of this talk he did. I think it was at Microsoft in Education. And the quote starts off, "I am not the best teacher in the world, but I can say with absolute certainty that every year I am the best teacher that I've ever been." And then he continues on that, which is just so eloquent, just such a cool thought. Like that's the perfect, like you're not the best ever, you're the best you've ever been. But then he says, and this is what really gets me, and this is what drives me, being the change takes practice, not the kind that you do until it's perfect, the kind that you do because it's worth it. So when I see these educators on Twitter or at conferences or on Instagram or on Facebook or wherever they're bringing in information or listening to podcasts, and they're doing it just because it's worth it, they're just keep getting better just because they want to do that for the kids. Like that's what excites me. That's what drives me forward. That's what keeps me, coming back to my computer to post another episode or another tweet or whatever it might be. That excitement and drive from educators just keeps me going. It's just so exciting to see it.
No, that's a great quote. I like going to copy and paste that and put that somewhere that I can look at it and post that for even just our network. I think that's really powerful. And that really encompasses the Teach Better mindset.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The video itself, by the way, is like 5.5 minutes long, and the whole thing is good. Like, I don't want to boil it down to just a couple lines. Like, the whole thing is amazing. But those are just those lines where, like, when I first heard him say that, I was like, wow, like that's huge. That's perfect.
Yeah, Jake, you obviously have had a number of different leadership roles, whether you're, in the classroom working with students, as a coach working with other teachers, at a conference or workshop, doing a podcast recording. It's very evident that you have an important story to share, and you're able to just focus on this idea. It really encompasses this quote of just trying to be at our best, and every single day just trying to grow a little bit more. What advice would you give, whether it be a new teacher to the classroom, or maybe just a new teacher that's going through some sort of shift in their educational career, what advice do they need to keep up this mindset and stay progressive?
Yeah, I think it kind of builds off of that quote where it's you're doing the work. By the way, can you hear my son building with Legos in the background right now?
No, but I wish
okay. That must mean my microphone is working good because I can hear him like dig through a bucket of Legos right now.
And I think we need to bring him into the conversation at this point, find out what he is building.
Yeah, he would actually come in and be like, "Dad, are you talking about educational duct tape again?" He always asks me. But anyhow, it builds off of that quote where you're not doing the work, you're not putting the work in to be perfect. You're doing it because it's worth it. And I feel like sometimes teachers, especially first year teachers, new teachers, feel a little bit beaten down because they feel like they're not perfect. Like they did some good things, they did some bad things, and they're feeling the bad. Like they're feeling that they're not perfect. And so what I want to just tell them is like, your best is good enough. As long as the kids know that you care, as long as you're showing that, doing whatever is your level of best is good enough. As long as next year you do your new best, as long as you keep doing your best, that's good enough because continuing to improve is worth it and nobody expects you to be perfect.
I love that. Your best is good enough as long as next year is your new best. Like that.
Right.
That's powerful. I mean, and it is right. You said it earlier, like, that is the Teach Better mindset just encompassed so well. So I think you're going to do okay at the conference.
Good. Like I said, I've been practicing.
Really quick, before we go on to the most challenging thing you've done today, let's talk really quick. You are coming out to the Teach Better conference. I know we've joked a bunch, we've promoted it, whatever, but like we really are super excited to have you coming out to the conference. We've got a lot of amazing presentations coming, and we're super excited about that. But we've got you on right now. Can you give us like the 30-second pitch of what is your session, or maybe there'll be multiple Jake Miller sessions at the conference that you're going to be bringing for everyone to get into?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I'm talking about educational duct tape when we're there, and I'm excited to talk about it because what I just shared about educational duct tape kind of earlier in this episode was just like the 30-second vision of what it is, but in the educational duct tape session, I get to go through the story, which is a fun story of where the metaphor fully came from, but kind of seeing eye to eye with those educators and telling them like, as long as you continue to grow as educators, you're doing the right thing for your students. And this is how to select the educational technologies to learn about. You don't have to learn them all. This is how to select them. So that's really what it is. It's kind of a session where I get to tell some stories and have some fun. But the educators, I think, leave feeling empowered to make decisions for themselves about what kind of technologies to use, how to select them, and how to go about starting to implement them. We always have some fun in that session.
That's really, really cool. And I know before we get into the 6 questions, there was something that I think we're going to mention later on, but I want to bring it in right now to make sure no one misses it. You're super awesome, and we're going to do something really cool for listeners, and you have a little giveaway you want to do. Can you lay that out for us and how everyone listening right now can get this and potentially win it?
Yeah. So my passion is talking about how teachers can use educational technology to help students. But my hobby, it's got like they kind of go together. My hobby is spreadsheets. Like I should have like a pocket protector and glasses with tape on the rim of them right now because I just love a good spreadsheet. Like when I hear about a new formula, I'm like, oh man, that's so cool. Like I just love spreadsheets. And if you know me already, you know that I make a lot of GIFs. Some people call them GIFs, but I call them GIFs. And I make them to teach normally educators how to do something really quickly with technology. And so people started kind of latching onto those GIFs. And last spring, I started a thing called GIFaday. And currently I'm doing Google Sheets with GIFaday because I love spreadsheets. And people that register for GIFaday get a GIF in their inbox every morning for normally it's 28 days is just what it's been so far, teaching them a different new skill in spreadsheets. And by the end of the 28 days, we say they're a Google Sheets ninja. So I'd like to give a few free registrations, maybe 2 free registrations away to some listeners. So I'll give you guys a link to put in the show notes. But those of you who are feverishly like, I want those registrations, it's bit.ly/Jake Miller giveaway. And I'll select 2 of those people to give free registrations to GIFaday.
That's awesome. So make sure you head over there. We will have that in the show notes. You can also go to the address that Jake just gave it. We'll make sure we have that there for you at teachbetter.com. So Jake, that's awesome. Super excited. Really appreciate you doing that for us. So let's have some fun now. Let's go into the next 6 questions. Your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
What is this one? Maybe the hardest one for you, man. I'm not even going to lie. What
That's
is
true.
one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
This is really hard for me, but if I've got to name one, it's got to be Camtasia. That's the program I make my GIFs in, and anytime I'm making a video for something, I prepare and edit in Camtasia. So it's got to be Camtasia.
Give us a book you're reading right now.
I'm reading two. I'm reading for hobby, for fiction. I'm reading the Jason Reynolds track series. I just finished Ghost, and I'm about to start. I think Patina is the second one, so I'm about to start that one. I loved the first one. My wife was reading it because we both work in schools, and we've seen the kids reading it a lot, and we're really enjoying that series. And then as a professional, I'm finishing up Teach Like a Pirate right now. I'm a little bit like 5-6 years late to the party on that book, but I'm enjoying that one. I don't know what's next, so if anybody's got any recommendations, let me know.
Wait,
I've got one coming out.
We totally have a recommendation.
Yeah.
What's your recommendation, Ray?
Well, I want him to read Teach Better.
I hope he does.
I don't know. I've heard about those people. I've heard they're not that great.
Wow.
Well, the book's pretty good. The people might be kind of boring, but the book's pretty good.
I mean, the good editors and stuff, so it kind of like made the book better than what we actually put together. So, that's a good thing. I'm looking right now that this will be out. The book will be out just a little bit after this episode launches, so we'll make sure that we get that over. So anyway, all right, back on track here. Who do we need to follow on Twitter today or Instagram, wherever you want to go?
The one thing I hate is when people on Twitter say like, "I'm new to Twitter, send me like 200,000 people to follow," right? I feel like if you follow just a handful of people that you trust and they're good curators, you're going to find a lot of good stuff. So you don't have to then you're going to say like, "Oh, they shared this tweet from this person." Like Jake Miller shared this tweet from Jeff Gargas or from Ray. And then I'm going to follow them now too. So a good curator is a great follow. One person I'm really enjoying the work from right now is Mike Mohammed.
Yes.
He's Mo_physics. And he is, he's kind of the guy right now talking about Pear Deck and talking about the new camera with Flipgrid. He's doing really good stuff with both of those. So I've been enjoying what he's been sharing.
Mo Physics, Mo Problems. That was his episode with us. I can't remember what episode that was that he was on, but we did it live in Wisconsin at Spark. And he was awesome. We had a blast with Mike. So shout out to Mike Mohammed there. Give us a good YouTube channel or website for educators.
Eric Kurtz is the master curator of everything education, right? And his website, Control-Alt-Achieve, is amazing. But the best thing on his YouTube channel are the Google Educator Group Ohio monthly meetings. They're not quite always monthly, but they're pretty monthly. I was actually on the last one. That's purely coincidental. I would have named it otherwise. But he does it once every month or two and tells you everything you need to know that's happened in Google since the last one. Oh, nice. And there's nobody better to hear about what's new in Google than Eric Kurtz, because he knows it, he lives it, he works it, he's a master of it. So his YouTube channel is a must follow for that and for the other content he puts out. Give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine that every teacher should get into. Just simple reflection. I've never really had a format for how I reflect, but I just, after every presentation or every lesson or every task that I complete, I try to reflect on how it went, find the areas where I can make better about it, and kind of give myself a pat on the back for the things that went well. But I find if I'm reflecting, that I'm identifying kind of next steps and how to improve and things like that. That's awesome. And finally, give us the best piece of advice you've ever received. So this one's a little bit of a cheat, but I mentioned it earlier, and I didn't receive it directly from him. I wish I would have, but that Seth Godin book, like it really changed my life path. That book, What to Do When It's Your Turn, and It's Always Your Turn, and that whole message of it's always your turn. You just have to step up and take it, right? Don't wait for the boat to come in. You swim out to it, right? And that piece of advice, even though he didn't give it to me directly, was huge for me. Well, Jake, I'm excited to grab coffee with you November 8th and really get to hang out, since I'm still jealous that you already hung out with Jeff. But this has been a great episode. There's so many quotes and takeaways that I want to make sure I go back in this recording and write down. And obviously, I'm stoked for your session at Teach Better Conference. It's ridiculous that it's just a few months away. I feel like it's so far, but hopefully it'll be here in no time. I would really love for our listeners to be able to connect with you, not only obviously because you're a part of our Teach Better family, but also because I know you're just pushing out so much amazing content to just strive for educators to work at their best. So would you mind end up sharing your Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, kind of anything in between that they can continue to connect with you on? Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm so psyched to meet you guys too. Like the list of people that are presenting there, seeing you guys and seeing all those other people. Like, I'm just so stoked for that day. And I've just got to drive like 3 miles down the road and I'm there. Like, that's so amazing. But yeah, the places to find me, I try to stay on brand with Jake Miller Tech. So that's me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Jake Miller Tech. And then my website is jakemiller.net. Maybe I should have gone jakemillertech.net. I don't know. But jakemiller.net is where it's at right now. And then I mentioned earlier, eduducttape.com. And then if people are interested in that GIFaday that I mentioned earlier, that's at jakemiller.net/GIFaday, GIFADAY. And then on MySpace, I am Jake Miller /Dave Matthews Band. Like that, I was just running a Dave Matthews Band on MySpace. So.
Jake, can I just do a quick, Jeff, I know we talk about this a bunch, but I want to do a really quick shout out for those who listen to podcasts. Like the way that we gain listeners and continue to amplify the stories that we're able to share on each and every episode is by subscribing and leaving a rating and review. And so I not only, obviously, that'd be cool if you did for Teach Better Talk, but more so head over to Jake Miller's Educational Duct Tape, because that's going to be a spot you easily can just click subscribe, and then a rating and review. It's super easy. It takes like a whole minute to like click the 5 stars, leave a little comment if you're willing, and it just allows us to reach more listeners. So make sure you go do that for Jake to continue to share all the great things he's doing.
And for the awesome stuff you guys are doing.
Yeah. I love it. And you can find all the links and all the resources we've mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com. Especially those really important links for connecting with Jake, getting in on the free giveaway that he's got going on, and finding the podcast to give him a rating, review, and subscribe. We have all that over there in the show notes, so head over to teachbetter.com for all of that. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any upcoming episodes. And if you can give us that rating and review, we'd really, really appreciate that. And let's take it one step further. Just think of 3 of your colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and share this podcast with them. We really appreciate that. Jake, man, this has been awesome. It was everything we were hoping for and more, outside of actually being live with a cup of coffee with Ray. I think it was fantastic.
Right.
I really appreciate you coming on, taking some time to hang out with us, have some fun, and share your story, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys. It was a blast.
And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.